So we're back for episode 2 of this series, tackling the question of how Annie is still alive after 4 years of being in her crystal. Now, first off, I have my personal theory going with this, and that's her Titan powers are kind of keeping her alive somehow without the need of food and water, because it's never once seen or shown that she was eating or drinking while she was in her comatose state. But there's no evidence backing that claim up, and that's kind of why I made this video, because it's kind of a nitpick. It's how is she alive during the whole thing? And something interesting about that, you can see in the scene when Armin's oh, if Eren released all the Titan hardening, that means Annie might be out, and then it cuts to Annie's body on the ground, and she's coughing in a pool of some liquid. I'm thinking that's spinal fluid, because that's kind of important in Attack on Titan. It's a recurring theme that spinal fluid is what gives Titans powers. You see with the manga spoilers, but the hallucinogenia type creature toward the end of the manga, just the gas giving off, just making everyone into pure Titans. That, and then obviously Zeke's spinal fluid being used, stuff like that. So my theory is that it's spinal fluid, but there's also a chance, a very, very slight chance, that the fluid could somehow be keeping her alive indefinitely until either her lifespan runs out or she gets out of her crystal. And then there's kind of that funny scene when Armin's talking about Annie getting out, when she's just stuffing her face with pie, and which was most definitely made for comic relief because we were in the midst of the rumbling. But yeah, you could also okay, this is really, really digging deep into it, but hey, that's what Attack on Titan is. You could see that as her genuinely needing food after spending the last 4 years in a crystal without any actual food. And this is also gonna get kind of weird, but if we bring this into the real world, right? When you're in a coma, normally you're in your hospital bed and you have very minor brain activity. It's basically you're asleep, but your body is unresponsive, and they have to hook up nutrients to your veins directly, liquid nutrients, to keep you in this, to keep you alive in that state of unresponsive sleep. But something interesting to be noted is that some coma patients have described being able to hear their surroundings in a coma while they were in a coma. Something that relates to Annie's state almost exactly, because on her talk with Armin on the boat, that was so wholesome, but that talk basically, Annie was oh, if it wasn't for you and Hitch, I wouldn't have known anything, or I don't remember the exact quote. I'll put it up on screen though. Yeah, but kind of coming back to Inverse, if you remember Lara Tiber, the Titan that had less screen time than Connie's mother, she was also able to encase herself in a crystal. In fact, it was a part of the Warhammer Titan's ability, but she was conscious during the whole thing. You can see her eyes flitting about, especially when she activates her corpse of the Warhammer Titan when Eren grabs the crystal. But yeah, she was conscious during the whole process, including being turned into a smoothie by Nutcracker Galliard and Chad Yeager. But this was kind of interesting to me because Annie ate like a small piece of the Warhammer, and since one of her abilities as the female is to like eat some part of other Titan shifters, she can manifest a part of those abilities from them. So like I have a theory that during her, like before she launched the like warrior, before Marley launched the warrior unit into Paradise to reclaim the founder, they like fed Annie a piece of the Warhammer Titan, which is kind of weird because that Titan was like known for just being with the Tybers and never leaving their presence. But yeah, and her crystal is pretty much identical to Lara's, but since she wasn't like the actual holder, my theory, this is all theoretical because none of this is proven, she didn't have the full extent of those abilities like say Aaron would, because like obviously we haven't seen Aaron do that, but theoretically he could since he has the Warhammer Titan now, after eating her. But yeah, and the reason I bring all this up is that Lara, technically speaking, we never saw this, but she had the ability to like leave her shell whenever she wanted to, meaning that even if she was on the battlefield, she would have been totally fine to pop out, go eat some like food and sleep, and then go shoot people with her crossbow the next day. And Annie doesn't really have that kind of freedom, meaning the only reasonable conclusion I can draw is that somehow her crystal is acting like a sort of stasis chamber, allowing her to live until her lifespan runs out due to the curse of Ymir, or she gets out like we saw in the anime and manga. But yeah, that's about it for this video. Again, if you have any like answers to these questions, drop them in the comments along with any topics you want covered. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I did also want to note that this is probably the most speculative of these types of videos because there isn't really any evidence pointing toward an actual answer for this question. But yeah, that's pretty much it.